Is that you, Annie? Hello, Diane. Hello, Lito. Uh-oh. Is this a different gospel? Where's the page? There it is. All right. We're continuing on with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We are starting chapter 48 tonight, in the company of devotees at Syampur. The date is Thursday, October 29th, 1885. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning when M arrived at Dr. Sarkar's house in Shankaritola, Calcutta, to report Sri Ramakrishna's condition. M and Dr. Sarkar became engaged in conversation. Doctor: You see, Dr. Bihari Bhaduri always harps on the same thing. He says that Goethe's spirit came out of his body and that Goethe himself saw it. It must have been very amazing. M: As Sri Ramakrishna says, what shall we gain from these discussions? We have been born in this world in order to cultivate devotion to the lotus feet of God. He tells us the story of a man who entered an orchard to eat mangoes, but instead of eating the fruit, he took out pencil and paper and began to jot down the number of trees and branches and leaves in the orchard. A servant saw him and asked, "What are you doing? Why have you come here?" The man said, "I came here to eat mangoes. I am now counting the trees, branches, and leaves in the orchard." Thereupon the servant replied, "If you have come here to eat mangoes, then enjoy them. What will you gain by counting the trees, the branches, and the leaves?" This is obvious, really talking about why we practice spiritual life, why we do it. We often think that it's in the secret lies in the philosophy or the dogmas and the creeds, and people will take meticulous notes. And we'll spend our entire life, coming and listening to lectures and studying books and arguing about them and trying to understand them. And the interesting thing is, you read any of the mystics, any of the seers, any of the people that have been successful as such, quotes around that word, I guess, in their spiritual life, who are known for having been seers, and they will tell you that this does not happen in the mind. Right? We have to purify the mind, but the purification of mind is the removal of me and mine. And the removal of me and mine from mind will silence it. And in that silence, that which you seek is made known to you. In that silence before mind, before body. And it's there that you find out who you are through a knowing, not through a sentence. What you see or what you will know at that point. Not see, because it won't be something that comes in through the obvious, through the front door, the senses. It's something that you are and kind of bleeds around the edges of your awareness in the form of a knowing. Not something that is described, but an essence of isness, as it were. And so whenever we read the scriptures, Swami Prabhupada once made a great point to me. I was reading the Ramayana at that time, and I had asked him, I said, "Maharaj," I said, is this a historical account, or is this a novel? Did this happen or did this not happen? And his response to me was quite beautiful. He said, "See, it doesn't matter. That's not how you read holy books." He said, "When you read a holy book, read it. Focus on it. Be with it in the moment. Don't divide your mind by taking, notes and studying it like it's an academic text." He said, "Read it with your full attention, and then when you're finished, close the book and become aware of the residue that it leaves behind in you. Become aware of how it felt to read it, to what was inspiring and how it moved you, what drew your attention, what took you higher. And he said, and then sit with those things. And that's how we read holy books. And so especially when we read something like the Master or any of our bhakti books, even organic texts on the path of knowledge, because the path of knowledge is not about head knowledge. The path of knowledge is trying to put our awareness in the middle of this knowing that happens before mind, when the mind finally silences and has stopped entertaining you, stopped distracting you, and stopped lying to you about who you are and what you are. And in the absence of that constant narrative, there's the knowing, a knowing that won't be able to be described, but a knowing that's more sure than any information coming from our relational attic called the mind. So, as we read these things, enjoy the presence. Imagine yourself in Dakshineshwar sitting with your beloved here, sitting with the divine, if you see him as an incarnation, sitting with God. And what a delight that would be to finally have your questions evaporated. The doctor, I see that the Paramahamsa has been able to extract the essence. Then Dr. Sarkar told M many stories about his homeopathic hospital. He showed M the list of the patients who visited the hospital every day. He further remarked that at the beginning, many medical practitioners had discouraged him about homeopathy and even written against him in the magazines. M and Dr. Sarkar got into the doctor's carriage. The doctor visited many patients. He entered a house of the Tagore family at Paturiyagata and was detained there by the head of the family. Returning to the carriage, he began to talk to M. Doctor, I was talking to that gentleman about the Paramahamsa, that would be Ramakrishna. We also talked about theosophy and Colonel Olcott. The Paramahamsa is angry with the gentleman. Do you know why? Because he says he knows everything. M. No, why should the master be angry? I heard that they once met each other. Paramahamsa Deva was talking about God. The gentleman said, oh yes, I know all that. Doctor, he has donated 32,500 rupees to the Science Association. They drove on, talking about Sri Ramakrishna's illness and the care that should be taken of him. Doctor, do you intend to send him back to Dakshineshwar? M. No, sir. That would be a great inconvenience to the devotees. They can always visit him if he is in Calcutta. Doctor, but it is very expensive here. M. The devotees don't mind that. All they want is to be able to serve him. As regards to the expense, it must be borne whether he lives in Calcutta or at Dakshineshwar. But if he goes back to Dakshineshwar, the devotees won't always be able to visit him, and that would be a great cause for them to worry. Dr. Sarkar and M arrived at Syampur and found the master sitting with the devotees in his room. Dr. Bhaduri was also there, just to not breeze past that little conversation about the master being angry. There's only one thing in this world that provokes anger, it seems to me. Maybe I should just say to me. And that is just that hard-edged egoism, where you'll have a conversation and somebody holds on to their point as a point of identity for them, that there's no conversation around truth. The investigation's not going for truth. And this is part of the reason when we started the chapter here and he was talking, about not counting the leaves and the branches. It's like not taking on that academic approach. It's like telling somebody about this book that we're reading. Oh yeah, I've read that. I've read it too. I've read it 14 times, and I still, every time I read it, find new material. And sometimes the old material hits in a very different way because of something else that now I understand, that now it means something more. I found that the truth with reading the Christian scripture also. After I became a Vedantan and then opened up the scriptures of my youth like that, I read those things and boy, wow, did I understand them at a different level? Did they speak to me in a much more beautiful way? And so this is really that lesson Swami Vedananda used to say, when you read the gospel, don't assume that you've read it before. Nisargadatta also says that, and I am that. He says, anytime you pick up a scripture, never make the mistake to think that you've read it before, because no moment has been like the moment you're in right now, and your mind has never been in the condition that it is at this moment. And so to read it with that freshness, with that assumption of knowing nothing, because it's in that where you're able to be touched. You're able to recognize something that you haven't seen before. You know, there's that story of that wonderful sadhu that stands in front of that waterfall in India all the time. His only practice is to see that waterfall again for the first time all day long, and just sit there and wonder, what a beautiful thing you have created. What a wonder. And so it's this, that's how we don't grow old. That's how we stay fresh, is by not assuming we know something because we've experienced it before, but to always be open to the infinite, to the presence of God in the moment, until we recognize that presence. Dr. Sarkar examined the master's pulse and inquired about his condition. The conversation turned to God. Dr. Bhaduri: shall I tell you the truth? All this is unreal, like a dream. Dr. Sarkar: is everything a delusion? Then whose is this delusion? And why this delusion? If all know it to be delusion, then why do they talk? I cannot believe that God is real and his creation is unreal. The Master: that is a good attitude. It is good to look on God as the Master and oneself as his servant. As long as a man feels the body to be real, as long as he is conscious of I and you, it is good to keep the relationship of master and servant. It is not good to cherish the idea that I am he. Let me tell you something else. You see the same room whether you look at it from one side or from the middle of the room. Right? So what Ramakrishna here is saying, he's warning us, this I and you, we have to be where we are in spiritual life. Quite often, Vedanta especially, because Vedanta is so broad and so vast and has so many different paths included in it, different techniques of reaching the ultimate ideal. I don't know how many times I've been having a discussion with somebody and we get onto shaky ground and suddenly they just grab the high Advaitic ideal, I am God, and argue from that perspective. Well, you can't say that. Right? The reason we can't say that is because we don't know who I is, right? You haven't found out what you are. And certainly, having not known who you are, there's no way to know who God is. And so it's a meaningless statement that simply inflates the ego. And so to have that idea to grab something from the top of the philosophy stack when you're still down in the bottom third of it, and mind you, that's not a degradation to say you're in the bottom third. Brahmananda says that spiritual life begins at Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So you can just know everybody's a beginner. Everyone is a beginner. Dr. Bhaduri to Dr. Sarkar: what I have just said to you, you will find in the Vedanta. You must study the scriptures, then you will understand. Oof. Dr. Sarkar: why so? Has he, meaning the Master, acquired all this wisdom by studying the scriptures? He too supports my view. Can't one be wise without reading the scripture? Master: but how many scriptures I have heard. Dr. Sarkar: a man may mistake the meaning if he only hears. In your case, it is not mere hearing. Master to Dr. Sarkar: I understand that you spoke of me as insane. That is why they, pointing to M and the others, don't want to go to you. Dr. Sarkar, looking at M: why should I call you, meaning the Master, insane? But I mentioned your egotism. Oh my goodness gracious. Why do you allow people to take the dust of your feet? M: otherwise they weep. That's what Swami Prabhupada told me. That used to bother me a great deal when I first joined. As a matter of fact, the first time I went into the Vedanta temple in San Francisco, my first visit there, I was waiting in line to shake Swami's hand afterward, because that was the tradition there. And there was a family in front of me from India. And when they got to Swami, the whole family went down on their face and just laid flat on the floor and took the dust of his feet. Of course, I had never seen that before in my life. I had never seen that. And I was already a little shaky, because those Eastern religions in my upbringing were never painted in a good light. And so I had already sort of taken a dare to go into the temple and to hear this talk. And then I saw somebody lay down on their face, and I turned around and walked right out of there. And my friend Philip, who had invited me, comes running out behind me. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I said, "Look, I don't know what that was. I don't know what they were doing. But in my world, there is no place for someone to degrade themselves in order to respect somebody else." I said, "I don't know what that was." And then he explained to me, he said, "No, that's, we don't have a context." He says they bow down to their parents, they bow down to their teachers, this is a sign of deep respect. Anyway, he managed to get me to go back in there and shake Swami's hand. So, and I told him, so when I told Swami Prabhupada, I said, "I don't think you should let people do that." And he said, "Yes, I agree also." He did agree with me, he said. But he said, "See, it's part of their devotion. And if I tell them no, they are upset about it." And he says, "So what can I do?" I try to encourage them to do it in private. But it is their devotion that leads it to them, and I cannot say no to their devotion. And when he packaged it that way, when I thought from that perspective, I was like, that's right. It's me that needs to deal with my discomfort. We don't need to change the whole place for how I feel. And I mostly feel that way these days. M, otherwise they weep. Dr. Sarkar, that is their mistake. They should be told about it. M, why should you object to their taking the dust of his feet? Doesn't God dwell in all beings? Dr. Sarkar, oh, I don't object to that. Then you must take the dust of everyone's feet. M, but there's a greater manifestation of God in some men than in others. There's water everywhere, but you see more of it in a lake, in a river, or an ocean. Will you show the same respect to a new bachelor of science as you do to a Faraday? Dr. Sarkar, well, I agree with that, but why do you call him God? M, why do we salute each other? It is because God dwells in everybody's heart. You haven't given much thought to this subject. I really appreciate how directly they talked about these things with each other. Master to Dr. Sarkar, I've already told you that some people reveal more of God than others. Earth reflects the sun rays in one way, a tree in another, and a mirror in still another. You see the better reflection in a mirror than in other objects. Don't you see that these devotees here are not on the same level with Prahlada and others of his kind? Prahlada's whole heart and soul were dedicated to God. Dr. Sarkar did not reply. All were silent. The Master to Dr. Sarkar, you see, you have love for this, meaning himself. You told me that you loved me. Dr. Sarkar, you are a child of nature. That is why I tell you all of this. It hurts me to see people salute you by touching your feet. I say to myself, they're spoiling such a good man. Keshav Sen too was spoiled that way by his devotees. Listen to me, Master, listen to you. You are greedy, lustful, and egotistic. Oof. There it is. Dr. Bhaduri to Dr. Sarkar, that is to say, you have the traits of a jiva, an embodied being. These are his traits: lust, egotism, greed for wealth, and a hankering after name and fame. All embodied beings have these traits. Dr. Sarkar to the Master, if you talk that way, I shall only examine your throat and go away. Perhaps that is what you want. In that case, we should not talk about anything else. But if you want discussion, then I shall say what I think to be right. All remained silent. No doubt a little uncomfortable probably watching that. But this is that notion, that love for the Master, and always cover things, what to say, in that sense, in the way that we view each other. It's always look for the love in the way people speak and the things that they say. Don't let the ego jump up and get in the way. Especially coming to the Master. I mean, the Master's life is untouchable. And to not be able to see that and to think that you want to teach him or make him do something right, it's always better to be quiet for a while until you know a place and you know a people before anything is said. The Master, let me tell you the truth. He, meaning Dr. Sarkar, is now following the path of negation. Therefore he discriminates, following the process of neti, and reasons on this way. God is not the living beings. He is not the universe. He is outside the creation. But later he will follow the path of affirmation and accept everything as the manifestation of God. By taking off one by one the sheaths of a banana tree, one obtains the pith. The sheaths are one thing, and the pith is another. The sheaths are not the pith, and the pith is not the sheaths. But in the end, one realizes that the pith cannot exist apart from the sheaths, and that the sheaths cannot exist apart from the pith. They are part and parcel of one and the same banana tree. Likewise, it is God who has become the 24 cosmic principles. It is He who has become man. To Dr. Sarkar, there are 3 kinds of devotees: superior, mediocre, and inferior. The inferior devotee says God is out there. According to him, God is different from his creation. The mediocre devotee says God is the antaryami, the inner guide. God dwells in everyone's heart. The mediocre devotee sees God in the heart. But the superior devotee sees that God alone has become everything. He alone has become the 24 cosmic principles. He finds that everything above and below is filled with God. Read the Gita, the Bhagavata, and the Vedanta, and you will understand all of this. Is not God in his creation? Dr. Sarkar, not in any particular object. He is everywhere, and because he is everywhere, he cannot be sought after. The conversation turned to other things. Sri Ramakrishna was always experiencing ecstatic moods, which the doctor said might aggravate his illness. Dr. Sarkar said to him, "You must suppress your emotion. My feelings too are greatly stirred up. I can dance much more than you." The younger Naren, smiling, "What would you do if your emotion increased a little more?" Dr. Sarkar, "My power of control would also increase." Master and M, "You may say that now." M, "Can you tell us what you would do if you went into an ecstatic mood?" Oh, here's a segue. The conversation turned to money. Master to Dr. Sarkar, "I don't think about it at all. You know that very well, don't you? This is not a pretense." Dr. Sarkar, "Even I have no desire for money, not to speak of yourself. My cash box lies open." Master, "Jaddu Malik too is absent-minded." When he takes his meals, he sometimes becomes so absent-minded that he doesn't know whether the food is good or bad. When someone says to him, "Don't eat that, it doesn't taste good," Jaddu says, "Oh, is this food bad? Why is that so?" Was the Master hinting that there was an ocean of difference between absent-mindedness due to contemplation of God and absent-mindedness due to preoccupation with worldly thoughts? Pointing to Dr. Sarkar, Sri Ramakrishna said to the devotees with a smile, "When a thing is boiled, it becomes soft. At first he was very hard. Now he is softening from the inside." Dr. Sarkar, "When a thing is boiled, it begins to soften from the outside." "I'm afraid that that won't happen to me in this birth." Everyone laughs. Dr. Sarkar was about to take his leave. He was talking to Sri Ramakrishna. "Doctor, can't you forbid people to salute you by touching your feet?" Master, "Can all comprehend the indivisible Satchit Ananda?" Dr. Sarkar, "But shouldn't you tell people what is right?" Master, people have different tastes. Besides, all have not the same fitness for spiritual life. Dr. Sarkar, how is that? Master, don't you know the difference in what the difference in taste is? Some enjoy fish curry, some like fried fish, some like pickled fish, and again, some the rich dish of fish pilau. Then, too, there is a difference in fitness. I ask people to learn to shoot at a banana tree first, and then at the wick of a lamp, and then at a flying bird. It was dusk, and Sri Ramakrishna became absorbed in contemplation of God. For the time being, he forgot all about his painful disease. Several intimate disciples sat near him and looked at him intently. After a long time, he became aware of the outer world and said to M in a whisper, "You see, my mind was completely merged in the indivisible Brahman. After that, I saw many things. I found that the doctor will have spiritual awakening, but it will take some time. I won't have to tell him much. I saw another person while in that mood. My mind said to me, attract him too. I shall tell you about him later." Shyam Basu, Dr. Dukhari, and a few other devotees arrived. Sri Ramakrishna talked to them. Shyam, what a fine thing you said to us the other day. Master smiling, what was that? Shyam, what remains with a man when he goes beyond jnana and ajnana, knowledge and ignorance? Master smiling, it is vijnana, a special knowledge of God. To know many things is ignorance. To know that God dwells in all beings is knowledge. And what is vijnana? It is to know God in a special manner, to converse with him, and to feel him like he's one's own relative. To know that there is fire in wood is knowledge, but to make a fire with that wood, to cook food with that fire, and to become healthy and strong from that food, that is vijnana, right? And so he's talking about our spiritual life, To know that God is everything that's knowledge, and we can know lots of Vedanta and still be a mean and horrible person, right? But it's digesting it, to know that your nature is love, wisdom, and being, that's Satchitananda. And then having the ability to get your ego diminished through contemplation, through constantly discerning inside and understanding your inner world. And it's then that love, that Satchitananda, begins to flow from you, right? And so you've got those three levels in spiritual life. You've got knowing. You come here for a couple of lectures. You can throw a few things around at a dinner party and you know something, right? But you have to digest it. You have to put your practice into it so that it gets down into you, so that this truth that the world is one stops you from arguing, stops you from feeling better than everyone else or less than everyone else. And when those things begin to fall away because of your time in contemplation and your direct touching or sitting in the presence of that beloved in the heart, and you begin to love, that's real knowledge. That's what he's talking about here. Shyam smiling. And then about the thorn, the Master smiling, yes. When a man gets a thorn into the sole of your foot, you procure a second thorn. And after taking out the first thorn with the help of that second one, you throw both thorns away. Likewise, you should procure the thorn of knowledge in order to remove the thorn of ignorance. After destroying ignorance, you should discard both knowledge and ignorance. Then you attain vijnana. Sri Ramakrishna was pleased with Shyam Basu, right? Because Shyam remembered something, right? That's the thing. You remember, you asked somebody the next day what was said at the talk on Sunday. And I find that most of the time my mind, I have to sit there and really squint my eyes and think, wait, this is what it was. So he's thrilled that somebody was listening and took it in, and then even mentioned it to him. He was quite an elderly person and wanted to devote his time to contemplation. This was his second visit to the Master. Master to Shyam Basu, give up worldly talk altogether. Don't talk about anything whatever but God. If you see a worldly person coming near you, leave the place before he arrives. You have spent your whole life in that world. You have seen that it is all hollow. Isn't that so? God alone is the substance, and all else is illusory. God alone is real, and all else has only a 2 days' existence. What is there in the world? The world is like a pickled hog plum. One craves for it, but what is there in a hog plum? There's only a little bit of skin and pit, and if you eat it, you'll have colic. Shyam, yes, sir. Everything you have said is true. There's why the master enjoyed Shyam, because he knows experientially about the emptiness of the world, right? He's seen it, he's lived in it, and he's tried to be happy in it and come up empty. And he's seeing that, and now is coming to find out what is beyond that. Everything you have said is true. The Master, for many years you have devoted yourself to various worldly things. You will not be able to think of God and meditate on him in this confusion of the world. A little solitude is necessary for you. Otherwise, your mind will not be steady. Therefore, you must fix a place for meditation at least half a mile away from your house. Shyam Basu remained silent for a few moments. He appeared absorbed in thought. The Master, smiling, besides, all your teeth are gone. Why should you bother so much about the Durga Puja, right? I was saying about the Durga Puja because of all the prasad, all of the offered food. Why do you worry about the puja? You can't eat the food. You don't have any teeth. Everyone laughs. A man used to celebrate the worship of Durga with the sacrifice of goats and other ceremonies. He continued the worship many years and then stopped it. A friend asked him, "Why don't you perform that Durga Puja anymore?" "Brother," replied the man, "my teeth are gone. I have lost the power to chew goat meat." Shyam. Oh, how sweet these words are. The Master, smiling, this world, it's a mixture of sand and sugar. Like an ant, one should discard the sand and eat the sugar. He who can eat the sugar is clever indeed. Build a quiet place for thinking of God, a place for your meditation. Have it ready. I shall visit it. Shyam. Sir, is there such a thing as reincarnation? Shall we be born again? Master, ask God about it. Pray to him sincerely. He will tell you everything. Speak to Jadu Malik, and he himself will tell you how many houses he has and how many government bonds. It is not right to try to know these things at the beginning. First of all, realize God. Then he himself will let you know whatever you desire. Shyam. Sir, how much wrong, how many sinful things a man does in this world. Can he ever realize God? Master, if a man practices spiritual discipline before his death, and if he gives up his body praying to God and meditating on him, when will sin touch him? It is no doubt the elephant's nature is to smear his body with dust and mud, even after his bath, but he cannot do so if the Mahut takes him into the stable immediately after his bath. In spite of a serious illness, the Master keenly felt the sorrow and suffering of men. Day and night he thought about their welfare. The devotees wondered at his compassion. The assurance of Sri Ramakrishna that no sin can touch a man if he gives up his body while praying to God was deeply impressed on their minds. Friday, October 30th, 1885. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. Sri Ramakrishna was talking with M in his room. No one else was present. M was going to Dr. Sarkar to report his condition and to bring him to examine the Master. The Master, to M, smiling, Purna came this morning. He has such a nice nature. Manindra has an element of prakriti, of womanliness. He has read the life of Chaitanya and understood the attitude of the gopis. He has also realized that God is Purusha and man is Prakriti, and that man should worship God as his handmaid. How remarkable. M. It is true, sir. Purna was then 15 or 16 years old. Sri Ramakrishna always longed to see him, but his relatives did not allow him to visit the master. And one night, before his illness, Sri Ramakrishna had been so eager to see Purna that he had suddenly left Dakshineshwar and arrived at M's house in Calcutta. He had brought Purna from his home to see Sri Ramakrishna. The master had given the boy many instructions about prayer and afterward returned to Dakshineshwar. Manindra was about the same age as Purna. The devotees addressed him as Koka, a footnote here, meaning baby. He used to dance in ecstasy when he had heard the chanting of God's name. About 10:30, M arrived at Dr. Sarkar's house. He went up to the second floor and sat in a chair on the porch adjacent to the drawing room. In front of Dr. Sarkar was a glass bowl in which some goldfish were kept. Now and then, Dr. Sarkar threw some cardamom shells into the bowl. Again, he threw pellets of flour to the sparrows. M watched him. Doctor, smiling to M, "You see, these goldfish are staring at me like devotees staring at God. They haven't noticed the food I've thrown into the water. Therefore I say, what will you gain by mere bhakti? You need knowledge too." M smiles. "Look there at the sparrows. They flew away when you threw the flour pellets to them. They were frightened. They have no bhakti because they are without knowledge. They don't know that the flour is their food." Dr. Sarkar and M entered the drawing room. There were shelves all around filled with books. The doctor rested a little. M looked at the books. He picked up Canon Farrar's Life of Jesus and read a few pages. Dr. Sarkar told him about the first homeopathic hospital was started in the teeth of the great opposition. He asked M to read the letters relating to it, which had been published in the Calcutta Journal of Medicine in 1876. Dr. Sarkar was much devoted to homeopathy. M picked up another book, Munger's New Theology. Dr. Sarkar noticed it. Doctor, Munger has based his conclusions on nice argument and reasoning. It is not like your believing a thing simply because of a Chaitanya or of a Buddha or of a Jesus Christ saying so. M, smiling, "Yes, we should not believe Chaitanya or Buddha, but we must believe Munger." Doctor, whatever you say. M, we must quote someone as our authority, so it is Munger. The doctor smiles. Dr. Sarkar got into his carriage, accompanied by M. The carriage proceeded toward Shyampukur. It was midday. They gossiped together. The conversation turned to Dr. Baduri, who had been visiting the master now and then. M, smiling, "Paduri said about you that you must begin all over again from the stone and the brickbat." Dr. Sarkar, "How is that?" M, "Because you don't believe in the Mahatmas, astral bodies, and so forth. Perhaps Paduri is a theosophist. Further, you don't believe in the incarnation of God. That's why he teased you, saying that when you died this time, you would certainly not be reborn as a human being." That would be far off. You wouldn't be born even as an animal or a bird or even as a tree or a plant. You would have to begin all over again from a stone and a brickbat. Then, after many, many births, you would assume a human body. Dr. Sarkar, goodness gracious. Baduri further said that the knowledge of your physical science was a false knowledge. Such knowledge is momentary. He gave an analogy. Suppose there are two wells. One gets its water from the underground spring. The other has no such spring and is filled with rainwater. But the water of the second well does not last for a long time. The knowledge of your science is like that rainwater. It dries up. Dr. Sarkar with a smile. Oh, I see. The carriage arrived at Cornwallis Street. Dr. Sarkar picked up Dr. Pratap Mazumdar. Pratap had visited the Ramakrishna the previous day. They soon arrived at Shyampukur. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room on the second floor with several devotees. Dr. Sarkar to the master, "I see you're coughing," smiling, "but it is good for you to go to Kashi." All laugh. The master, smiling, "But that will give me liberation. I don't want liberation. I want to love God." Everybody laughs. Pratap was Dr. Paduri's son-in-law. Sri Ramakrishna was speaking to Pratap in praise of his father-in-law. The master to Pratap, "Ah, what a grand person he has become. He contemplates God and observes purity in his conduct. Further, he accepts both aspects of God, personal and impersonal." M was very eager to mention Dr. Baduri's remarks about Sarkar's being born again as a stone or a brickbat. He asked the younger Naren very softly whether he remembered those remarks of Dr. Baduri. Sri Ramakrishna overheard this. The master to Dr. Sarkar, "Do you know what Dr. Baduri said about you? He said that because you didn't believe these things, in the next cycle you would have to begin your earthly life from the stone or a brickbat." Everybody laughs. Dr. Sarkar smiling. "Well, suppose I begin from a stone or a brickbat, and after many births I attain a human body. But as soon as I come back to this place, I shall have to begin over again from a stone or brickbat." The doctor and everybody laughs. The conversation turned to the master's ecstasy in spite of his illness. Pratap, "Yesterday I saw you in an ecstatic mood." Master, "It happened of itself, but it was not very intense." Dr. Sarkar, "Ecstasy and talking are not good for you now." Master to Dr. Sarkar, "I saw you yesterday in my samadhi. I found that you are a mine of knowledge, but it is all dry knowledge. You have not tasted divine bliss." To Pratap, referring to Dr. Sarkar, "If he ever tastes divine bliss, he will see everything above and below filled with it. Then he will not say whatever he says is right and what others say is wrong. Then he will not utter sharp and strong pointed words." The devotees remain silent. You see, that's when we let these words take root, when we begin to understand them. You know, when that oneness begins to dawn on us and we don't assume, we don't put ourselves against everyone else. We don't compare between people. We keep our inner atmosphere. We find that more important, to maintain that inner peace, to maintain that inner stillness, than to argue about things that we haven't seen or tasted yet. All right, we'll stop there for the day. A few announcements. Sunday, November 16th at 11, that's tomorrow, How to Eat Humble Pie and Like It by Swami Mahayogananda. This Wednesday at the 19th at 5 p.m., we'll be reading from God Lived With Them, reading about Swami Vijnanananda. And then next Saturday, we'll be back here again doing this class. And next Sunday at 11 a.m., Spiritual Bypassing by Swami Dhyana Yogananda. It'll be a delight. So come by here as often as you can. As you know, this is your place, built on the devotees, by the devotees, for this. Come and enjoy the atmosphere here and do your practice and leave a little bit behind so that others can enjoy that as well. Swami Prabhupada would say that every year at our Memorial Day gathering, there was always a lot of people there that had never been there before, and people would always want to make a donation or something, and he would always say, "No, don't leave money." He says, "Come and do practice in our shrine and leave your holy vibration, and that will be more than enough."